It's Alex from PSYCHONAUT Visions signing in here, and I am trying something new here, a podcast called the Psychonaut Podcast. And for this very first one that I'm doing, I'm going to call it Press the Restart Button. Now, this may mean something different to everybody. Pressing the restart button, you may want to rejuvenate yourself and recuperate. Find yourself resting in order to return back to life and feel like you can better tackle problems, feeling like you can better take on your responsibilities. Now, that's kind of what I want to talk about, but I also want to talk about pressing the restart button with YouTube. And YouTube is something that I haven't been focusing on. And it's a really long story. I think I might as well just tell it because nobody really knows the full extent of everything except my closest friends. In January of this year, in 2021, I was feeling really good. I was really looking forward to the winter and experiencing the winter time and being able to go outside and breathe in the cool air and experiencing the weather. I looked forward to the rain. I loved the rain. I loved watching it fall. I loved hearing it fall. It was soothing. It felt therapeutic. But after a while, spring began to come along, and as much as I wanted to be excited for it, I just wasn't. I really was not. I was dreading the summertime coming. I couldn't stand the heat. All I could think about was how I wanted to go live in the mountains where it's cool and it feels good and you can wear layers and do all that. I wasn't present. I wasn't in my present state of mind. I was also thinking too much and romanticizing about the previous year and my experience, my solo shrooms trip that I did in March of 2020. And that year itself was a long year of ups and downs. But I was thinking too much about it and I wasn't staying present. I was listening to music that brought me back to that time. Music that wasn't bringing me to the present moment. And when March came around, me and Will were planning on tripping on 7 grams of shrooms together. And after a while, things started opening up again, finally, around where we live. In terms of restaurants and stuff, and the vaccine finally came out, and our other friend was finally available to hang out. Because for the longest time, he wasn't able to. And it was partially because he didn't want to get his dad sick, which is understandable, but also his mom was holding him back as well. But finally, we were able to get a hold of him, and we hung out with him, and at first it felt kind of awkward. It felt weird. But near the end of the first time we saw him, it felt good. It felt good to see him again. It felt like things have changed. And we didn't see him again until we asked him to trip on shrooms with us. And we ended up going to the same spot that we originally all three found together. And we did about a 4.5 gram shrooms trip with him. And it was beautiful. It really was. And I felt so much closer to him than I ever have before. I felt like our friendship, me and Will, our friendship with our other friend, has grown into something that can't really be touched. And, things obviously might change, and there might be a time when we all have to split up and go our separate ways, but we're always going to remember those times we had together. But the issue with that day that we tripped all three of us together for the first time in a long time was that it made me realize all the problems I had going on. I felt like I was too attached to trying to buy a new car, trying to work so much, working a job that I strongly dislike, because I was attached to the idea of buying a new car so I can go off-roading and do nature trips and do things that I wasn't able to do previously with the vehicle that I have now. And for the longest time, I was motivated to get promoted at Starbucks because I would get a pay raise and I would be able to save even more money to buy this new car. But the problem with that was that I was struggling mentally. I was spiritually drained. I felt like I had nothing left in the tank, and that day that we set aside together to trip, that it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me. And now I sit here looking back at it, thinking why I ever did that, and all the things I became attached to, and all the habits that I gave into. Because eventually I ended up becoming I was getting personalized ads on Instagram, trying to buy clothes to the person that I want it to be. The person I want to be, this mountain man who owns all these cool jackets and all these cool pants and that are stylish, that are functional, that I can use out on hikes and stuff. And you know what? I think it'll pay off in the long run, but at the same time, I spent a lot of money and I wasn't pacing myself. And I felt like I was attached to many things, but I was also not really attached to actual reality. I was, how do you say it? I was dissociating from reality. And I felt even worse after that shroom trip we all did together, knowing that I had to go back to work the next day, knowing that I needed to do this. And Starbucks is essentially the complete antithesis of what I want to do with my life. And honestly, I'm not even 100% sure what I want to do with my life. And I really don't think any of us are. But I do want to work with people and help them improve their health somehow, some way, using nature to their benefit, bringing people out into nature and taking people out on hikes and adventures because they're fun. And I love doing that. But I lost sight of that. I lost sight of everything. And around that same time, my parents were going through a divorce. And I don't think it was necessarily the aspect of the divorce that was bothering me. It was the fact that I had to move. And moving out of this house that I've been living in for 6 or 7 years, it hurt. I was so settled in, and there were so many things to do, so many things to get rid of. It was a complete restart. Like I said, it was a complete reset button. Press the reset button. But when you press that button, just know that all your problems don't magically go away. You have to give yourself the time to heal. Give yourself the time to be yourself and be loose and be alone. You have to battle the darkness in order to come out on top and see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I know it's hard. And I've been there before. I think we all have. But every time it happens again, we question if we're ever going to come out of that darkness. And I felt like this time around it lasted for a while. I have only uploaded maybe 2 or 3 times the past 6 months. And I don't feel good about that. I feel like I lost all my motivation for YouTube. Like I gave up. And I feel like my ego got the best of me. Because at first I was motivated by a rising subscriber count. Thinking like, oh, if we can build this audience, we can do anything. But then there's times where the subscriber count slows down and me and Will question, are we ever going to grow? But I think deep inside, we know that we're going to grow. It just takes time and patience. And patience is a virtue. It's something we all have to learn to have. Not all of us possess a high degree of patience. And after tripping on 8 grams of shrooms recently, I realized even more so all the different perspectives that I was ignoring. All the people that I've given a hard time. All the people that I never truly understood because I wasn't putting myself in their shoes genuinely. And it's unfortunate that I had to go through pretty much a complete ego death to have this reset button start. But just know that when you do press that reset button, that you're going to struggle at first because you have to deal with everything that you've been struggling with. You have to actually face it head to head. And I'm going to keep saying it. It's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But if I can do it, you can do it because we're both human. We go through our trials and tribulations. We're only human. We can't keep setting unrealistic goals for ourselves. If you feel like you can't afford to break, then just question some parts of your life that may need changing, that aren't serving you any purpose or aren't supplying you with any form of happiness. Because our ultimate goal is to be happy. And we may not truly know what happiness is concretely, but we all want to be happy. We all want to feel good. We want to feel satisfaction. We want to feel content with our lives, like a sense of accomplishment. That doesn't mean we have to go work towards one goal, and once that goal is over, well, that's it. We should constantly strive for happiness, strive for something that is greater than just us, but that still serves us a purpose. And with Starbucks, I feel like for the longest time, I've needed to press that restart button. And lately, I've been taking lots of time off to help me with that. Resetting my entire body mentally and physically. I think it's really helped. I think my attitude towards work is a little bit different now because I'm not so drained. And to keep in mind, Starbucks pays for my college, so it almost feels like I don't have a choice. Like I can't exercise any free will to just quit because then I may suffer in the long run because I had to pay off college debt. So I just had to try to be grateful. And I know it's one thing to say, oh, you need to be grateful, but actually being grateful and practicing gratitude takes work. Sometimes it's tough to be grateful. I feel like I haven't recognized some of the people in my life enough and just thank them. I haven't thanked them enough. There's a lot of things that have been brought into question after my ego death on shrooms. And I was thinking of starting a podcast a couple weeks ago just to try something new, but after tripping, I feel like now's the time. I feel like I experienced something that most people don't get to experience. Seeing things from a whole nother level. I'm not trying to boast myself or gloat about it, but I think it'll help eventually. But the last couple of days of trying to integrate, and I think it'll get easier. I think it'll be easier eventually. But for now, I think I'm going to clock out because I don't really have much else to say. And I think that's the beginning of the Psychonaut podcast. So Alex from Psychonaut Visions signing out.